Hello. Not too long ago, I filmed a video breaking down my expenses in London, but about a year ago, I had a message on one of my videos, I don't even remember when or which, asking how I can afford to live in London and do the things that I do, you know, travel, see shows, go to dance classes, etc. And I think at the time I was still living with my grandma, so I kind of was reluctant to make a video because I know that it took a lot of the costs off of me and a lot of the pressure as well. But I've now been living the same life, but on my own for 6 months. And so I want to discuss how I'm able to afford the things that I do. That being said, obviously a lot of house costs are split with Wayne, and I haven't scripted or planned this video at all. I've literally just decided because I've got some free time, I'm gonna make it. So I might miss things, I might say the wrong thing, I don't know. We're just gonna talk through it. So I think first and foremost, this is something, if you've watched me a long time, you will know this, but if you haven't, if you're new, you won't. And it's, I think, a major factor into how I'm able to afford the things that I do, which is that I don't like spending money, and I'm very frugal, and I don't buy unnecessary things. And obviously the definition of unnecessary is different for different people, but I have a very limited necessary budget, so to speak. Not even budget, things that I consider necessary. So I won't go shopping for clothes ever. I won't even get a coffee, or, even if we go to a restaurant, with friends, I'll usually try and get the cheapest thing on the menu. I care less about my own comfort and pleasure than I do about saving money. And I know for a lot of people that's not the case. I know for a lot of people their priority would be, just enjoying the meal, or, getting a coffee in the morning because it makes them happy, or going shopping because they want to buy new clothes. And for me, I wouldn't say money's always at the forefront of my mind, but it's definitely something I think about in everything that I do. And that leads me quite nicely onto my second point. Again, not planned, but here we go. Which is that because I think about money in everything I do, I will often, unless I'm really in a rush for something, I will take the cheapest route to places. So if that means an hour and a half bus journey as opposed to a 45-minute tube journey to save £2, that's what I'm gonna do. Or if it means walking instead of taking a bus or a tube, that's what I will do. Obviously there are limits. There are some cases where it makes more sense to take the tube or whatever. And also, of course, it has to be said, I'm very grateful and lucky, privileged to be able to walk. The fact that I am able-bodied, fit, healthy, no real physical issues. That's not something everyone has, and it means that not everyone can even choose to take that option, but I can. And I'm very aware that that's a privilege. Then in terms of theatre, first of all, I said earlier about not really giving myself any, budget towards fun things or, pleasure. My two exceptions for that are, and have always been, theatre and travel. Those are always the two places where I'm willing to make an exception. That being said, when it comes to theatre, I still have very strict limits about how much I'm willing to spend. So a lot of the shows I go to are either because of rush tickets, which is, on the day cheaper tickets, or another form of on the day cheaper tickets, or people reselling at a cheaper price, or people sometimes giving away. So even if I've gone to, X amount of shows in a year, probably a percentage of that is, under £10, a percentage of that is free, most of that is under £25 per show. It is very rare for me, £30 already feels like a stretch. So yes, I go to the theatre a lot. But that's the other thing, if I can't get any of those deals, I will buy the cheapest tickets up in the gods. And again, that's where I'm making the sacrifice. Now I know it's a privilege to have the money to go to theatre, even if it's only £25 per show. But again, that's where I'm choosing to spend my money rather than on food or on clothes or whatever else. And then obviously, I'm sure the biggest question for a lot of people is the travel, because I do a lot of travel. I do go to Australia about once every 18 months or so if I can. I usually go to Holland once or twice a year. I go to Ireland usually once a year. I'm very aware that I do travel more than average. First of all, again, as I said earlier, it's one of the places where I am willing to spend money. But that being said, I absolutely cannot deny the fact that a lot of the time my travel is paid for by other people. When I was working on the ship, and I think I went to Holland twice, I believe both of those were paid for by the company because it was on my way to the ship. Obviously, when I, lived in Greece and Lapland and wherever else I've been, that's been from companies rather than my own cost. The recent family holidays that we went on have been, presents from family members. And again, even though I am willing to spend the money, I will often, again, find the cheapest ticket, which is why I've ended up taking coach journeys from here to Holland in the past and back. And to Ireland. I've done it once or twice to Ireland as well. Or I'll take the flights that are at stupid o'clock because it saves me 20 quid. And I'll travel hand luggage instead of with actual luggage because again, that saves me 30 quid. And I will bring prepped food rather than buying something at the airport. Like all these little decisions enable me to travel, but not necessarily comfortably. And also a lot of the time when I travel and where I travel to means that I don't have any costs once I'm there, or at least very few. But obviously I'm talking a lot about sort of how I'm able to discount anything that I do. It's also worth acknowledging, obviously, that I'm not from lower class. I would say I'm probably working middle class, I guess. I don't really know how the classes work, but I know that I'm not lower class, and obviously that gives me an advantage as well. Also, silly things, but I was put into a good school. I had a lot of good opportunities in school that would help me later in life in terms of applying for jobs and, you know, doing things that give me money, basically. But on that note, I don't want to negate my own hard work. And it's always such a touchy thing to talk about, I feel, because I know that there are other people who work just as hard as me and who don't end up with the same results. And I can't explain how that happens. That being said, I do work really hard. I've worked from the day I could work. Even before I was of legal age, I was babysitting for people, you know. I have always worked. And I've always sacrificed breaks to work more. I've always been the kind to offer to cover people if it's, you know, a last minute emergency, or to stay longer or to come in earlier. And I don't really think I was out of work for a couple of months in 2019 when I was traveling. But aside from that, I've been working since I was able to. So I have saved money over the years, but I've also established that for myself in terms of then getting future jobs and, you know, being able to negotiate salary. Not that I'm very good at it, and I probably am worth more, but it's meant that I've been able to go into job interviews kind of knowing my worth and at least being able to get the job. Because again, the job market is so tough, and I know that, and I've been so lucky. But I mean, currently I'm working 3 jobs plus, you know, babysitting on the side. And before I was also tutoring. I've stopped that now. My camera's about to die, so I'm going to try and finish this up. So there's a lot of factors to me being able to afford the life I live. But I think probably from your perspective, you don't see all the sacrifices I make. But that being said, I know I have it a lot easier or nicer than a lot of other people, and I can't explain that. If you have any other questions, obviously nothing too, you know, personal, but feel free to write them down below and I'm very happy to answer them. Just remember, it's a sensitive topic. Thanks so much. Bye!